Hello, everyone, and welcome to another Sunday evening session with Brian and Janice. We are delighted to have you with us today because we do have a very interesting topic to discuss today. I hope you all are joining in now and that you would encourage others to come and join in with us as well. We are embarking upon something great that's going on in the atmosphere, and we want everybody to be aware, be conscious, be knowledgeable of everything that's going on in our world and universe today. We are going to give you some interesting information today and give you a little inside scoop on what's actually going on. Again, welcome everyone to a Sunday evening session with Brian and Janice, men and women of destiny. We are on YouTube, Men and Women of Destiny. And we encourage you to like and share and tell others about what we're doing. So without further ado, I'm going to let Brian begin to break down, I call it the haves and the have-nots. We've seen a lot of that going on lately in Washington. Also, we're talking about democracy versus autocracy. And without further ado, let me bring you to the master, Brian Derek Watts.
Thank you for that introduction, sweetheart.
You're welcome.
Good evening, Facebook family, YouTube family. As Janice has said, we're in some very peculiar times relating to what we're seeing in the political landscape.
Arena, yes, yes.
It is, to say the least, it could be troubling.
Yes.
Especially when we don't know exactly from this particular point where we're going as a nation, and particularly where we're going as a people. So we want to try to break that down. Like Janice said, I like that, what she used. She said the have and the have-nots.
Yes.
That's an interesting
scenario.
Yeah, it's an interesting way to put it.
Analogy, okay.
Yeah, because we fall into those two categories.
Yes, we do.
There's no middle class anymore, if you will. It is the haves and the have-nots. So what we're going to try to do today, in the midst of what we saw happening on January the 6th at the White House, which did not surprise me at all. I wasn't caught off guard personally. It wasn't a shock to me. We talked about a show, several months ago, where we actually broke down the people that were the main source of the rioting, which were not black people.
No.
We talked about that. And we actually broke down historically what group of people those people were today.
Yes.
So what we saw happening in Washington really didn't surprise me. I think we have not seen the last.
No, we haven't.
And I think that's the unfortunate thing. But as black people, I think we need to be prepared. We need to understand what is going on so that we as a community, we as a group, we know how to move politically to actually ward off some of the things that may be coming our way. So let's talk about the haves and the have-nots. So what we want to do first is break down the word elite, okay? Elite versus non-elite. So essentially, when you're talking about haves and have-nots, historically, it always has been that way.
Yes, it has.
Okay. Historically, there has always been those that had and those that did not have. Okay. Those that have, rather, and those that did not have. Mm-hmm. And it is still the same way today. It is because systematically the government was engineered to actually establish a society based off of class. Okay. So Karl Marx, in the early 17th century, early 1800s, in his theory, Marxian theory, he talks about the class within society that is engineered by way of the government. So we're going to get into that. And that's where we actually, when we start talking about elite and non-elite, we get into some of the Marxian theory based on what the government has systematically engineered, and now without even trying, all people fit into those subcategories just by way society has been structured. Okay, so let's talk about it. Elite, the word elite. Okay, and if I look down, it's because I'm referencing my notes, everyone in my books that I've got sitting here. So, and I want to make sure that I don't miss anything. I want you all to get all of this. Okay, so I may look down every now and then, and that's why I'm looking down. But anyway, I want to break down the word elite. The word elite actually means, or comes from, it comes from goes back to a Latin word, but it actually means prevailing, wealthy, or either socially wealthy, politically wealthy. It all turns back to being wealthy. Okay, so what we have to define now, what is wealth as opposed to what isn't wealth. But when we talk about elites go back to wealthy families that have inherited financial wealth by way of marital status, by way of political status, by way of educational status, or by way of family inheritance. Okay. So when we break that down, family, we're looking at wealth being defined as something that has been positioned within a family structure for at least 2 to 3 generations. That's on a minimum. At most, can get up to 4 to 5 generations. So we're talking about at least 200 to 500 years of wealth being passed down within a family, either by way of marriage or by bloodline, okay, by way of political position, or by way of education and educational position.
Okay.
So so let's use an example. You could be a third generation of wealth inheritor by way of education, meaning that you are the third generation of your family to go on to college and receive a college education. And based on the college education that you receive, you have accumulated wealth. Now, in you accumulating that wealth, the wealth that your family accumulated by way of going to college, receiving a higher education, able to get a good job, able to save, able to put away and pass on, you inherit that wealth.
Yes.
Okay? And then your grandparents, by way of doing the same thing, leave a savings, leave land, leave property that's passed on to their children that now you inherit. Okay, so when we're talking about wealth, we're not talking about just receiving the education. It's about you having received the education and all of that was left behind from the education of your parents and your grandparents. Okay. Meaning that they left something with it. They encouraged you to get the education. They made sure you were able to go to school to get the education, but they left something in place outside of just sending you to school to be educated. Okay? So you did not have to start off, and staying with this example, you may not have to have started off purchasing a home because you inherited it, your parents' home, who had now transitioned. Okay. So you did not have the debt of purchasing a home. That is automatic wealth, simply because all the monies that you are making from being college educated, going to school, having gotten your nursing degree, and now those monies you don't have to put into a home mortgage. You don't have to put into home insurance. That money you can put into the bank. You understand? Yeah. So you are putting money, you are accumulating wealth on top of wealth. It doesn't happen like that for everyone, but it's just an example that I want to give so that people will understand. When we talk about educational wealth, political wealth, as it relates to being an elite, political wealth is when the lineage of the fathers are passed down to the sons. Perfect example is the Bushes. Okay? When you look at that lineage, it goes back to the Bush's great-great-grandfather.
Yes.
Okay? Another perfect example of political elitism is the Kennedys. Perfect example. Okay? So when we talk about political eliteness, there are certain levels of eliteness that we have to deal with as it relates to society. Everybody is not privy to those levels of a certain class of people that are handpicked to govern other people and to rule other people. We also have what we call corporate elite, which is CEOs, companies that are established and that may be passed down to the children. Perfect example of that is the Trumps. Okay? Trump, in his business, he hired his children. His children all work in different facets of his company. Okay? So that is corporate elitism. Okay? So there are certain levels of elitisms that exist that were created by way of government categorizing and subcategorizing classes and forming groups whereby people have to live in based off of their education, based off of their monetary wealth, based off of how their family existed prior to them. Those different dynamics factor into being elite or non-elite, or having or not having. Mm-hmm. Does that make sense?
Yes, it does. Yes.
Okay. All right. So let's talk about political elites real quick. Let me just kind of break that down. So what is a political elite? A political elite is an elected official that is elevated through government and are active in making rules and policies that control the structural makeup of society. Okay, that's a political elite. You understand? Yes. Okay. Chuck Schumer would be a political elite. Nancy Pelosi would be a political elite. Okay, so just throwing some names out there. These are political elites. People that actually control the structural makeup of society based on policies that they either pass or don't pass, which says what we can do, what we can't do, what governs us and what does not govern us.
Mitch McConnell.
Mitch McConnell, political elite. Exactly right. And we can go on. So just so everybody understands, when we talk about political elite, what is a political elite? We have modern day political elites. Nancy Pelosi has been in office for a while. Mitch McConnell has been there forever. Chuck Schumer has been there forever. Those are the ruling elites.
Joe Biden.
Joe Biden is a political elite. Perfect example. Mm-hmm. Okay. Kamala Harris is becoming a political elite. Okay. In her own way, she is a political elite. Yes. So those are people that make policies, like I said, that structurally governs society. It tells us what we can do, what we cannot do. That's very, very powerful within itself, because a lot of times we don't realize that our behavior is controlled by policy. Okay? So very powerful within itself. We don't understand, and a lot of times we can't see, that our reactions are based on the actions of others that control the government concerning building societies. Okay? So you just react to the action of the political elites that builds an infrastructure that says this is how this nation is going to be governed, this is how people should act and are going to act, and we will put policies in place, put laws in place to make sure that they stay within those parameters and in those borders.
Okay.
Okay, so
Okay.
okay.
Well, an
Also-
example, Brian, if I may interject,
Mm-hmm.
they are making laws and policies right now based on the riot that took place the other day at the Capitol.
Absolutely.
They're writing
Good
policies.
example.
Nancy Pelosi just said there's going to be an episode on CNN tonight. I think it's tonight, isn't it? Where they are actually going to be putting policies in place to govern that type of behavior, to ensure this is what will happen if this is ever done again, because they were not prepared for that. Or if they were prepared, they were instructed not to react.
Well, and that is a good point you make. This is what I want to say, is that the elites got their feelings hurt.
They did.
Okay?
They did.
Now, what happened in DC happened by a group of people that have been systematically designated, okay, as patriots. Okay? So in term-wise, when we talk about defining a patriot, I've said this: the people that have a right to call themselves a patriot more than any other group is black people. Now, we do not designate ourselves as patriot because the media have so maligned patriotism and set it up to be synonymous with white nationalists and white supremacy that we do not fully comprehend what a patriot is. Okay. Now, having said that, okay, because we don't know what a patriot is,
We really don't.
and because we have allowed the media to dictate
To us.
that's right, to us, that a patriot is no more than a white supremacist and a white nationalist and a backwards thinking Joe that came out of the woods. Okay, we forget that black people in this country have fought in every war.
Or, yes, we have.
We have participated in everything to liberate ourselves. We fought in World War I, we fought in World War II, we fought in the Civil War. We have fought in every struggle of liberation for this nation, and we are the only people that can say that. No other
race,
people
no other people.
in this country, apart from black people, can actually make that statement and it be true. We are the only people, even from revolution, prior to there even being a country called the United States, we were fighting to become the United States, along with what was then called patriots. Okay, so when we go back to history, we have to know our story and how we fit into the scope and the landscape and the makeup of this country. Okay, this is not the first time the Capitol's been attacked.
No,
it
it's
was
not.
attacked once before. It was burned down. Okay, we have to go back to the War of 1812.
Well,
we have to look
yes.
at all of those things. We had a couple of senators to point that out. You know, we talked about 1877, the compromise.
Yes.
Okay, with Tilden and Rutherford B. Hayes. So we're not dealing with something that is new. What happened was the elite, the political elite, was offended by this particular group of people because they felt like these people incited violence upon them. Now, let me say this. And the reason that they were offended was because they were of the same persuasion as them.
Exactly.
Okay? Now, let me make that clear.
'Cause
And
Brian-
let's break that down.
Okay.
When rioting was going on in Portland and St. Louis and all of these other places, the first thing that the media pointed out is that these are Black Lives Matter protesters. These are black people. They highlighted that. Okay. Not one time did you hear the media say that these people were white people. Notice that. They call them everything else, but they never refers to an ethnic persuasion. Why? History teaches us that white folks have been fighting against each other forever. Okay? So the political elite was offended that white folks would come in and desecrate what they considered to be their house.
Yes,
Okay? And that their own people would go against them as it relates to forming, keeping in place government to rule and to control the masses. Okay? So, in this January the 6th debacle, what you see is white against white.
So it's not our, it wasn't our fight.
It's never been our fight. We always have been the middleman in the fight. In the revolution, we were the middleman. Okay? In the Civil War, we were the middleman. World War I.
We were the middleman.
World War II.
Yes.
Middleman. Vietnam. Middleman. Desert Storm, which I was a part of. Black folk are always in the middle. The fight have always been with white elites against non-elites. Now, let's break that down and talk about why that is. Okay? When you go back to the establishment of government, okay, you have what we call a democracy. So what is a democracy? A democracy is supposed to be government that is ruled by the people. Okay? We do not have, well, let me define aristocracy. Aristocracy is a government that is ruled by the best that is amongst those people that are the same as those people. Okay. So let's say that again. Aristocracy is the best from amongst a group of people that rules the masses of people. Democracy is government that is supposedly elected by the people to rule the people. Okay? Does that make sense? Okay.
Well, yeah, I'm going back to going back to high school in my civics class. So
okay, so spit it out.
I got it.
Okay, all right. So what we have is supposedly a democracy. Okay, we do not have a democracy of the republic anymore. Okay. The word democracy, we talked about this in some previous shows, comes from the Greek word demokratia. Okay. Demokratia, the word demo means people. Okay. And up under the people category, we have districts. Okay. So whenever you talk about democratic rule, you're talking about people that are formed based on districts. Okay. So kratia means rule, and rule is always governed by the mob. Okay, so what we saw happen on January the 6th was democracy being put there in our face at its best. Okay, we saw mob rule at its best. We saw what a democracy really looks like when it is not controlled by a republic. You understand?
Yes.
So what is a republic? A republic is when the masses, not the few, a republic is when the masses interject their power to say, this is how we want to be governed.
Okay.
This is what we want in society. This is what makes us whole. This is what makes us prosper. This is what makes us advance as a human race. We do not have that. When you only have a democracy without a republic, you have mob rule. So what we saw happen on January the 6th was the mob of the democracy came out. Okay? They stormed the Capitol steps. They tore up the White House because they felt like they were not participants in this republic. Okay?
Wow.
So now you've got there again, the same, you have the same ethnic group fighting with one another.
And
Okay?
it wasn't about us.
It's never been about
so
us.
So basically what you're saying, Brian, is that those so-called patriots, what they
Right.
call themselves, I call them savages, the way they came into the White House, they were coming in to attack the Senate.
That's right. They came in to attack the elite,
Okay. Because
which they see as their own,
okay.
not giving them a fair chance.
Okay.
So what were they upset about? They are upset. And let me just help you all to understand politics. This is not about Trump. Okay?
Thank you. Thank you.
This is not, and that was not about Trump not getting elected. It's deeper than that. This was about the non-elite of the same ethnic persuasion saying that you have singled us out. You have ruled us out, and you have no longer made us viable as it relates to how we want to exist in this society and how we should be governed
That's right.
in this society.
That's right.
Okay, that's what the revolution was about. That's what the Civil War was about. Slavery was the middleman. It wasn't about slavery. Lincoln said first and foremost that it is my job to preserve the Union. Slaves just happened to be caught in the middle. That's it. It was never about slavery. It was about economic prosperity and those in the South not being for what the Northern group of folk wanted to do, which was industrialize everything, take money away from the South, politically disenfranchise the South by cutting their representation in half. It was all about politics. So when you go back to the Civil War, you have to understand that Lincoln's first job as president was to preserve the Union. He was trying to get the South and the North, political leaders of persuasion, financial leaders of persuasion, to work together in preservation of the United States. The slave happened to be caught in the middle, like we always have been. Okay, so this is not our fight with what has happened as it relates to the Capitol. Now, here's how the media will spin it. They will always throw in black folks because they need us in number. Now, I'm gonna show you something historically on that. Okay. They need us in number. Just in case something does pop off, they got more bodies they can institute into the fight. Okay, and implement into the fight. Okay. So now let's go back and look at some history here.
Brian.
Okay. Grecian. Now I'm gonna go back to Rome.
Let's go. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Rome is where we claim, the United States, everything that we do governmentally is fashioned from the Roman Empire. Okay. Rome is supposedly the democratic model that the United States follow as it relates to being governed. Okay. So in the 6th century CE, Servius Tullius, came up with the theory, quote unquote, of separating society into 3 classes. Okay. Basically, the first class were called the patricians. Now, notice how similar that sounds to patriarchs.
Yes.
Okay. But who were the patricians? The patricians were politicians that made up the Senate in Rome, which were sons of former politicians. They were political elites. That's who the patricians was. Okay. And then they had the plebeians. Okay. Who were the plebeians? They were the entrepreneurial power and strength, the financial strength in Rome that used their financial power
Wow.
to say this is what we want implemented in society and this is what we don't want implemented in society. This is how we want certain things to go and this is how we don't want things to go. And the way we do that is we implement a voting system. We want the authority to vote on how we want to control society. Okay. And then the last group in Rome you had were the proletarian groups.
Okay.
Who were the proletarians? The proletarians were the unemployable or the mediocre working group, okay, that was the lowest in society. They were just barely getting by. Okay. Now, oftentimes, in order to appease the lowest class in society, they would give them bread free, the government would, and they would offer free entertainment that they call circuses. Okay. We see them in the Colosseums. Okay.
Okay.
We understand them even today. Okay. We sit in Colosseums every day. We hadn't had a chance to since COVID started. But when we go to those big football games and
Yes.
basketball, we're sitting in the Colosseums looking at the circuses.
The auditoriums, the
Okay,
stadiums.
we're looking at the
Okay.
circuses. Okay, so now let's understand what is happening here. The group that I did not mention was also in Rome called the slaves. The slaves were responsible for making sure that Main Street always stayed pristine. Okay. With their function in Rome, they were allotted a place to live and a place to stay within the Roman structure of government. Okay. But they were offered no monetary reward. They simply were just allowed to exist.
Wow. How did they survive?
Okay. So that's a different story.
Okay.
Okay. All right. So the survival, like I said, you have to go back to the way the system was set up in Rome is that they had governmental assistance.
Okay. Like we have today.
Just like we have today. Okay. Now, the proletarian, the difference between the proletarian and the slave is that the proletarian wanted to be compensated because most of the proletarians were skilled laborers, whereas the slave was not considered to be a skilled laborer. Okay? The proletarian was the lowest of the class in this class society in Rome, but being the lowest of the class, they wanted to be compensated. They felt like they should have some voice in how they were treated as it related to the government. Now, what the patricians would do is whenever a vote would not go their way, they would incite the proletarians. And the way that they would incite them was by, even back then, using propaganda methods that would cause them to come in and to ransack the Senate, they would protest violently. They would go in, disrupt the Senate meetings. The same thing that we saw January the 6th is what has been going on for thousands of years. Now, our model is Rome. The way our system is set up is just like Rome. Okay, so what you saw was the patricians exciting the masses of the proletarians and saying, no, come here and disrupt this Senate because we're not getting what we want. Okay? We saw the same thing that was used back in Rome being used on January the 6th. It is no different, my brothers and sisters. It is the same game. It is the same scheme. Nothing has changed. And guess what? The slave is left outside. Okay?
Yeah, definitely.
Wondering what is going to happen to us in the midst of these people fighting each other. Okay? We're still in the middle. Okay?
Sounds like we're outside. We're not even in the middle.
We're still in the middle, but it is something that is really telling because they wanted or want to make it seem like this is something that historically has never happened. It is something that, history will record this day as infamous and it'll go down with everybody. No, this has been happening for years, for centuries with these people. They have always fought each other and has always been against the elite and the non-elite of their group. And we have always been caught in the middle. For us, where we have to get over the brainwashing is we have to understand that we were not included in the democracy nor the republic of this country. Okay, our group as slaves were not considered to be part of this democratic society. Okay, so when we understand that, then we can make rational decisions as it relates to the government of ourselves and how we're going to be affected by the policies that are being made, with us being considered to be the middleman, the ones that just, we're the standby soldiers. We're the scapegoat, as the Bible would say, okay? If you had to throw Bible out there. We're the ones that are used as a last resort.
That's it.
Okay?
Yes.
Because they're the slave. He's not the patrician. He's not the plebeians. And they are not the proletarians. Okay? They are the slave class. Okay? So the proletarian has every right to go in and to demonstrate, every right now, to demonstrate every right to excite the Senate to change its policies and change its laws. Now we'll see how much laws or how much the laws will affect this particular group of people. And you cannot, and there's no way that they can know that all of these people were what they're considering to be Trump supporters or white nationalists or domestic terrorists. They don't call them everything in the book.
Yes, they have.
Except white. Do you understand
That's
what I'm saying?
interesting, Brian.
It is very interesting. And then what I'm trying to get our people to see is that there is a reason, because they are considered to be part of them. You are not part of them, so they designate your ethnicity when you come on the screen and you're breaking out windows, and when you're fighting for liberation, and when you're fighting for laws to change. They say, well, look at those Black Lives Matter supporters. Look at that black man, that black woman. Look at how they're acting. No, they never say that they never designate who they are. Okay? Domestic terrorists. We know that domestic terrorists is a term that was coined back in the revolution. Okay? A domestic terrorist was considered one that went against the Britain patriots.
That's right.
So those terms, these are old terms that are being thrown
That's
out
it.
to define an old group of people.
That's exactly
Okay?
right.
To define the settlers, to define the paupers. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
This is the same terminology, but because we are not educated as it relates to history, it totally goes over our head, and we're thinking that they're coming out just so against this group, when in actuality, they're not. It's a good media game. What they are going to do is set policy in place, and mark my word, I'm saying this night, that will secure the White House a little bit better, and that will have reinforcements and backups at their disposal. They are not going to set any policies to particularly point out or specify a certain group in saying that this is what this law is going to do concerning any individual that may come to the Capitol and incite any type of violent acts. What they're going to do is put policies and laws in place, majority, to safeguard and to beef up security
At the Capitol.
and those laws will have stipulations that say if one breaches this security, or if one is found guilty of going beyond or penetrating beyond the security measures that have set in place, then this is what can happen. Okay. Now, guess what that does? That also stops black protesters from going. Guess what that does? That will totally eliminate a 1995 event again that happened when Louis Farrakhan
Right. Million
gathered.
Man March.
That's right. 1 million black men at the Capitol. You see
That's
what I'm
gonna-
saying?
that's gonna alleviate that.
That would eliminate
Wow.
that. So the group that will be most affected by this will not be those whites that rioted and tore up
And
the White
climbed
House.
walls.
That it won't be their group. It is going to be our group. It'll be those that have always been affected adversely by ignorant policies because of a fight between brothers and sisters that cannot get along. Okay? And we are simply, again, caught in the middle. Okay, so I'll stop there. Do we have?
So Brian, let me ask this question. Answer this question for me. So you said that it wasn't about us, and we know that because they
Right.
were all. It was all them going in. So with Biden coming in, this kind of took the focus off of what we've been asking for: reparations.
Good point. Excellent point.
You know that
Yeah.
now they got something totally they think is a greater area of focus to focus on, which pushes us further back, that we can't focus on.
Well, see, Biden has never focused on black issues. Let's just get that out there. Okay? This election was not about black people, period. This election, according to Biden's own words, was about the Hispanics and about diversity, multiculturalism. That's what this election was about. Okay? We talked about the destruction of the black family.
Yes, we did.
We talked about one thing that you're seeing more than any other things right now is the promotion of black and white men marrying or hooking up together,
Brown people, a whole nother race.
getting into relationships.
Yeah.
That is called diversity, multiculturalism. That's what this election was about. This election was not about the poor black ghettos that gets worse every year.
Or the hardworking black families that are trying to make it from day
That's
to
right.
day.
It wasn't about that. It wasn't about that. This election was about the next group of people that carries the power of the vote. Okay? Black people are only needed, like I said, as standby. We're needed as a pseudo vote right now because right now there are more Hispanics and Mexicanos in this country combined than black people. So in the next election, the Hispanic vote will control the election. So that's why Biden made the statement that, let's face it, and this is what he said when they asked him about reparations. He never responded to reparations. I said this on another show. You all can go back and Google it. Okay, when he was a Democratic nominee, he said, let's face it, this is about the Hispanics. They in 2 years and there'll be 95%.
Yes, he said that.
That's what he said. So it's never about black folks. Okay? We're always used as the pawns. And it's not until we consolidate our vote into a black bloc. That's what Georgia did this time.
They did it.
Okay? That's why you saw the power of Georgia come forth. Because those women that worked their butt
Tasha
off,
Brown and Stacey
and
Abrams.
Stacey Abrams, we got to
Yes.
give them kudos.
Give them credit.
But what they did is they neutralized the white vote by establishing a black bloc. And basically that black bloc said, together we stand, we are going to all vote for the same cause. It wasn't about the individual, Because to be honest, Warnock and Ossoff ain't gonna do no more than the other two races that were up there
Wow.
did. Okay, now and that's to help my Georgians, because my sister lives in Georgia.
That's
as well.
right. And
now, so understand, this wasn't about Warnock and Ossoff. This was about the black vote making a statement that we're voting for a cause. And those that best represent our cause is who we stand behind. Regardless of what their past says, regardless of whether or not you think they are good for the state or not, is not about that. So we have to get that mindset collectively across the nation as a black people. What is our interest? What is our cause? And regardless of the past of the person, if this person is going to go up there and represent our cause and our interest, then we stand behind that person, regardless of what everybody else says about them. So Georgia set a blueprint in place as it relates to the power of the black bloc that votes as it relates to their interests, not voting as it relates to just a person or to get another person out. You understand what I'm saying?
I got it.
So I just want to make that clear so we understand what can happen when we do what we should do
As a group.
as a group
People.
that understand interest. You understand what I'm saying?
Yes.
Interest. See, Warnock and Ossoff were bought. Period. That's how simple that is. When you got Dr. Claude Anderson gives us a model in his book Powernomics. See, there was more money spent in this runoff, think about this, than the whole defense budget.
Wow.
So now think about that. So money can buy politicians to represent your interests and fight for your interests. That's what politics is about.
Yes.
Okay?
Yes.
This is not playing the games of voting. This is about understanding how do we get power so that we can change the black ghetto, so that we can change the dynamic of our education system in our public school system.
Okay.
So that we can change the dynamic of the food deserts in our rural communities that nobody talks about, the black belt. You understand what I'm saying? Which is off the map as it relates to the United States. And the conditions that they live in are worse than third world countries.
Wow.
See, this is about how do we change the fabric of our society. This is not about being a part of their politics, because they're always going to be fighting one another. You understand what I'm saying? In 2 years, they're going to, the same so-called patriots, which are the proletarians, are going to be back fighting again. And we're still going to be in the middle. How do we get in the fight? You understand? To where we change how we exist in this society, and where we're no longer considered to be the slave, even though they don't call us that. They treat us like that based on their policies. That's why you have out of the 15 so million people that are in prison, half of them are black. How do we change that dynamic? And the half that are in there, 1/3 of them are in there because of simple misdemeanor crimes, simple misdemeanor drug crimes. When you got drug lords, you understand what I'm saying, that are out on the street, but yet you got the little man that distributes the drugs in the project that are locked up for 30 years. But the one that sold, that where the cartel controls that's come to drug, where the drugs are coming from, they're out running around free, living in their mansions, buying islands. See, how do we change the dynamic to where justice comes to our people? That's what we have to focus on. We can't focus on these petty fights between brother, sister, and cousin, and, you know, the McCoys and the, they're going to be fighting. That's just what they do. They're going to fight each other. We don't need to get in, let them fight. That's what they've always done. We have to change our course. Okay?
Wow.
All right.
Okay. Oh, wow, Brian, my brain is overloaded. Thank you all for joining. We really appreciate you so much, and share this video with as many people as you can. We'll be back next Sunday. I'll let you know earlier this week what will be our subject, and if you have any specific requests of anything that you would like to hear Brian discuss, and I just send me a inbox, and I will be glad to do it. Brian prepares for this all the time. He studies, as the Bible says, study to show thyself approved. I do know that he has been called, and he studies to show himself approved, and he's well versed in these topics that he's talking about. He didn't just start this year. He's been doing this for 20 plus years. I'm not trying to tell your age, Brian, but he is a theologian. He's a theologist. He has a degree in theology. He's a historian. He's done research. So this is what he goes by. And he lives by this, and he stands by this, and he can definitely back it up. And I never challenge him, because he can always verbatim give it to me by book, by date, by time. So I'm thankful for him. And I really appreciate you all for watching. Continue to follow this. He will give you the roadmap to the success of our people. It's where we need to get. We need to find that blueprint, that roadmap to do what Georgia did. Because for those of you that are watching that live in Alabama, you know what we represent here. You know who's representing us. Republicans. So
I'm going to show this book real quick. This is Baba Dick Gregory, Defining Moments in History, reading between Black history, reading between the lines. You see, he got Black X out. But let me read this real quick, what he said about democracy. This is after World War I. He says, then after going over there and fighting and dying for democracy and for the sake of the world, Black men came back here wanting some democracy of our own. But guess what? Guess what we found instead? The same old racist crap. Segregation, job discrimination, housing discrimination, and every other kind of Asian you could think of. That says it all about democracy. It never has worked for us.
How many years ago was that? That was after World War I, right?
That's after World War I. We're still in the same fight.
We're in the same fight.
Okay, peace, family.
We love you guys.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. I'll be doing a watch party right after this one. Thank you.